Sometimes I go and sit in that parking lot. It's right near here.
You do that now sometime? Why?
To remind myself that it's over.
I wasn't afraid, I was a boy, I was a tender age. Mannequin naked, knew a lake and drew the laws of a page.
Sure you want to do? I'm not sure I do. Okay.
Okay. Are you sure you want to do this? Should I be asking you?
No. Okay, so let's begin at the beginning.
Let's begin at the beginning. So, in December of 2011, 12, my sophomore year.
How old were you?
15. I went to a birthday party. I was having a bad night, and so my friend said that this would cheer me up. This guy across the room caught my eye, and he noticed me too. He was friends with the birthday girl, and I knew the birthday girl, so she noticed us looking at each other, and she exchanged our numbers for us. And then that night, I guess, he texted me, and I went to a party at his house, a New Year's party, and then we had our first kiss at midnight when the fireworks were going off, and his whole family was there, and people took pictures, and it was like this big thing. And he said, "Leah, will you be my girlfriend?" And I said, "Yes, of course," because I was, a little sophomore, and this was like this cool senior dude, and he seemed really nice, and
this was just the second time you...
This was the second, third maybe date, I guess. You're a guy, I'm a girl, I'm young, I'm naive, and, I'm excited that I have a boyfriend. So one day I was at baseball practice with him, and he said to me, "You never cheat on me, right?" This was like a month into the relationship. And I was like, "No." And he said, "Okay, just making sure." It was that same day that I decided to tell him that I love him, because he had told me that he loved me. And that just seemed like what you do. He would start making up crazy stories. I just remember being so confused and not knowing what to say to him, because the stuff that he would tell me was just so obviously not true, and it would make no sense. But I felt really pressured to be like, "Oh, okay, like, I understand," like I wasn't confident enough to be like, "That's bullshit," And I thought that I loved him, and so I just kind of went along with it. And I thought, like, well, maybe it's true. He would tell me, "I'm so popular at school. I've got all these girls who want to be with me, but I chose you." Around that time, we really started fighting a lot about nothing. He just picked fights about nothing. And usually it was about, "Oh, you were looking at that guy," or, "Oh, you were, talking to that guy," or, "I heard that you hooked up with a guy," things like that were really made up. And it was like I had a monologue, basically, that I would just tell him every time. Like, "I have never cheated on you. I'm not cheating on you. I will never cheat on you." Like, covering all my bases, I don't want to. I don't need to. I will never. Like, I just, like, started to listen, just, like, it took hours to just reassure him. And then it started happening on the phone at night. "Oh, you don't believe me. You don't trust me after all that I've done for you," and just turn it around, flip it really fast. It all happened, so it was like a slap in the face every time we argued, because I would just like, it'd be one way and then he'd just like, bow. Suddenly, the argument was somewhere else and it was all my fault. All in his head. Everything was all in his head. But then it transferred to in my head, you know? Because then he starts saying, you know, you're a fucking slut and you sleep around and like you're dirty and you're, blah, blah, you know, just like every, you know, like disgusting sexist slur you can think of. Mm-hmm. He would use it. And when you hear that every night for hours, for months and months, you start to believe it.
So how is it that you stayed with him?
It's like the golden question.
Can you even put it in words? Can you?
No. I mean, I asked that to myself a lot. Why the hell did I stay with him? It was a lot of things. I was scared. Get in the fucking car. So I got in, and he was just screaming and screaming, and then suddenly he turns to me and he puts his hands around my neck. And he just holds on for a really long time, really tight. And I couldn't breathe. I was like coughing, gasping for air, and like holding on to his hands, trying to get them off of me. And he had this look in his eyes. Like, I thought that was the last thing that I was ever going to see. Because he just looked like, I'm going to murder you. And then something snapped inside of him, and he let go, and I ran. And then this is the other thing that he would do. He was begging and crying, and I'm so sorry, and I love you so much, and I need you so. He got down on his knees. He was like, I love you so much. I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. You know, like, I need you. I need you to live. I can't live without you. And I started screaming, don't touch me, let go of me. Finally, he was like, are we still together? Are we still together? And I was like, no. And he was like, oh my God, please, I can't leave with you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, fine. And then he was like, okay. And then I got around him and ran down the hill, heading towards the house. I heard him mutter under his breath, you fucking bitch. And so after he's like begging for me, you know, and he gets in his car, and I'm running down the hill, and I'm in the middle of the street, and I hear something, and I turn around, and he was barreling down the street and stopped, like that close to me. I was literally a deer in headlights. So then I thought that was the last thing that I'm ever going to see. Then you guys pulled up. And so I went around to the driver's side, kissed him goodnight, went inside, told you guys we had a great date. And then that was the night. Somehow he had convinced me, really, to think that I needed him to breathe. You know, I thought I could change him. You know, I thought he was just a troubled guy who I loved, and I don't know what I thought. I was confused. I was scared. I was afraid of being alone. I was so used to fighting for him that I never even thought otherwise. He had always forced me to do things I didn't want to do sexually. We went to both my prom and his prom at the end of the school year. After both of those, he expected a lot. And I was scared to not give him what he expected. But we didn't have sex for a long time. But then, one day right after I had turned 16, so we were in the car, and he put his hand down my pants, and then he started talking about it, and then next thing I knew, he was pulling over to a 7-Eleven to buy condoms, and then the next thing I knew, he was parking in a parking lot somewhere next to an apartment building, and then the next thing I knew, we were in the back seat, and the next thing I knew, he was raping me. I was crying so much. And like really telling him that I didn't want to. And asking him to stop. And he just kept telling me, it's okay. This is good. I love you. But I knew it wasn't okay. But then I also knew that from then on, I wouldn't ever be able to say no. He would come over every night. After he was done, he would just leave. I would try to like cuddle with him or talk to him, and he would just get up and leave. So I'd cry myself to sleep, and then I'd wake up to a text from him that says something along the lines of, "So who came over after me last night, you slut?" And then all day we'd fight about it, and then he'd come over that night, and it would just go in circles forever, it felt like. So what happened when we broke up? I don't remember what the fight was about, but I remember getting really mad and like throwing my phone across the room and shattering it. And then you guys came in because I was yelling so much, and I told you guys that we had had sex, and I felt like the slut that he always told me that I was. After we had sex, he told me, "You're a slut for doing that." And I was so confused because he told me, "I trust you more afterwards, and I love you, and I want to do this with you." And then after it happened, he's like, "You're such a slut. You just gave it up that easily." It was like a game to him. And I just couldn't believe, that was going to be my first time. That was going to be it. So then when we broke up that first time, I was so conflicted because part of me wanted to get back together just because I didn't want it to end that badly with the guy who I had done it with the first time. And I didn't think it was rape when it happened.
And you did get back together.
And then we broke up, and then we got back together, and then we broke up, and we got back together. It took me like 6 tries. And he said, "Don't you want to marry me?" And then I was like, "No." No, I don't want to marry you, and I don't want to be with you. And then suddenly it just like all made sense. Suddenly I had all this confidence, and I just, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. And then I started getting text messages that were all of those things, you know. I love you, I need you, I don't need you. I'm gonna kill myself. I'm gonna kill you. I remember telling my cheer coach, like, showing her these text messages that I got during cheer practice one morning. And she was just like, "I would call the police." And I was like, no. Like, he's just being dumb, you know? And that day, I was in math class, and my good friend was next to me, and she was like, "Leah, what was all that weird stuff you were texting me last night?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "Yeah, you started texting me at like midnight. All this weird stuff about your ex." And I was like, "I was asleep at midnight." And so she showed me her phone of all these messages. He was in my room. And not only was he in my room, he was in my room while I was sleeping, using my phone to text my friend about him, pretending to be me. We got home and we called the police. They came and they took fingerprints from the window and they wrote down what the text messages said, and they said there's not really much we can do.
Yeah.
After that, we tried to get a restraining order.
To my surprise, we got like the preliminary restraining, but then there was what was going on with you. And
Yeah.
that's the hardest part for me.
When we were together, he told me that I should cut myself. Because I was an awful person, a bitch, I deserved it. So I did. I was on the phone with him. I had scissors in my hand. And I cut myself while he told me that I deserved it. And that started a long line of self-harm.
Unbearable sadness. Leah and her friend have a system where Leah can rank her level of sadness from 1 to 10. Today was 10. This is March 13th. Today was 10, unbearable sadness. Leah's sadness roams through the house all night. I lie awake listening to it, feeling it, even while Leah sleeps. I know Marianne does the same. It folds itself around her and draws us in, and we can't stop it. It sucks all the air out of the room, darkens everything, leaves Leah limp and us desperate.
And I felt his hands around my neck, and I couldn't breathe. And I just kind of exploded. I was lying on the couch, and I felt these monsters in my head. I heard his voice telling me what an awful person I was. I heard my voice telling me what an awful person I was. Because after hearing it for 9 months, I believed it. And I was so terrified. and so scared and so in shock and disbelief. And I really just couldn't function. And so I got up and I started screaming. And I went to the kitchen and I got a huge knife and I started hacking away at my wrist. I held it up to my neck for a really long time. And really, really considered just ending all of it. It was just too much. And then I blacked out. And the next thing I remember was you picking me up and taking me home. I did not want to talk about it. I was just so ashamed. I didn't want you to know.
And we were terrified.
Yeah, I'm sure. I was at a concert and I got a call from a policeman. And he said, "Do you know this guy?" And I said, "Yes, I have a restraining order against him." And he said, "We found him and another guy, his friend, conspiring to break in and do other stuff." He said, "We found a backpack with 4 pieces of rope, long enough to tie somebody up, chloroform, a baseball bat, bullets, and condoms."
Because I told him all we want is for this guy to back on.
Stop.
And the cop said, "You don't know what they were planning."
Yeah, they never told me what they were planning. They wouldn't tell me.
I still don't know exactly. I mean, all we know is, well, we know what they were.
What they had.
Well, we knew what they had. And maybe I know more than you. Because when I talked to the DA, she said that they were trying to get a gun. I guess he lied when he said he had one, like before then. Mm-hmm. And that their plan was to break in the house, first knock me out, or, take me out with the bat, tie up Mommy and Celia, and rape you. That was what they talked about in their texts. And that's why they pursued it. I thought you knew that.
No, they wouldn't tell
Maybe
me.
I should. No,
I mean,
maybe.
I understand why they wouldn't tell me.
Yeah. But when you testified at his preliminary hearing, okay, so he got charged with like 8 felonies.
Yeah.
And then there was a preliminary hearing. You came in and you testified for like an hour and a half.
Yeah. With him standing.
With him right there.
Right there. Like, seeing him there was something that I was really scared of, and his parents too. But it actually really helped because it made me really angry. And then I didn't falter at all. I didn't stutter. I was like, so mad. I was just ready to do it. So. And then he went to jail.
Mm-hmm.
He got sentenced to 2 years.
Which was a deal. It was a plea deal.
Which was
because
a plea deal. He could have gotten 8.
This was an email that I wrote to Molly while we were in New York. Leah told me when we were first here that what has been most helpful to her is the fact that people who have experienced with this, like her therapist, are telling her that it will get better. It will get better, but it's hard, a hard road. She believes that, something I was surprised to hear from her. It's more she believes that it can get better, not yet convinced that it will, but she's fighting so hard to get there. And she's incredibly honest. She's not holding anything back because she knows it all has to get out there for her to look at it and understand it. But she isn't succumbing, she's fighting. You're right, how could you possibly be ready for this? But we have to be. It's here, and we're all going to fight through it. And she's doing exactly what she needs to do, and we're all going to come out of it stronger and with a deeper bond.
I don't know how you guys did it.
You were, it's just what we did.
Yeah, you just have to. You don't have a choice.
I never looked at it as something we were doing. I always looked at it as something you were doing. Maybe we should stop now.
Love can hardly move with your heart.